The press room was buzzing. Cameras clicked. Microphones were raised. Reporters shouted over one another, trying to grab the best spot. This was Washington, D.C. at its peak chaos, where every second counted and every glance could be a headline. Former President Donald Trump entered the briefing room with his usual presence. Love him or hate him, he knew how to command a room. The crowd leaned forward, already preparing for sound bites. But then, something unusual happened. Trump didn't walk straight to the podium. He slowed. His gaze drifted to the left side of the room, not toward the major networks, not toward the front row regulars. Instead, it stopped on someone near the back. A young female reporter with her head slightly bowed. She wasn't filming. She wasn't talking. She wasn't typing. She was wiping tears. Trump squinted slightly, then tilted his head. And then, in a move that stunned even his own aides, he broke protocol. He pointed at her gently and asked, "Are you okay?" The noise vanished. The buzzing, the chatter, the snapping cameras, all of it froze. 100 journalists turned at once to see who he was talking to. And more importantly, why? Her name was Emily Santos, a 28-year-old field reporter from Dayton, Ohio. She worked for a small regional paper called the Ohio Ledger. Not exactly a household name. She wasn't a big player in the DC media machine. She didn't cover campaigns or scandals. She focused on people's stories, profiles of veterans, small-town heroes, teachers making a difference. This was her third trip to Washington, and her first time covering a major White House briefing. She had planned to write a quiet feature on policy changes affecting military families. Nothing controversial, but her world had changed just hours before. That morning, before even grabbing coffee, Emily got the call every military family fears. Her younger brother, Lance Corporal Miguel Santos, had been killed overseas. He was only 25, an Army medic on his second deployment. He died while shielding 2 wounded soldiers from an IED blast. She had barely processed it. Her editor didn't even know. She told no one. "I just didn't want to miss the story," she would later say. It's what Miguel would have wanted. But by the time Trump walked in, the grief had started to leak through her carefully built armor. Back in the room, all eyes were now on Emily. She looked up, startled, realizing the entire press corps was watching. I'm fine," she said softly, her voice barely audible. But Trump didn't back down. "You're crying," he said, not unkindly. "Something's wrong. Talk to me." She took a shaky breath, then another, and finally she whispered, "My brother passed away this morning. He was serving overseas." The room gasped. You could actually hear someone inhale sharply in the front row. A few reporters lowered their phones, unsure of what to do. This wasn't news. This was raw human emotion unfolding in real time. Emily wiped her eyes again and added, "He was a combat medic. He died trying to save others." Trump stared at her. This wasn't a political moment. This wasn't staged. It was completely unscripted. No one, not even his press team, knew what would happen next. 4. Trump steps away from the podium. For a second, the former president didn't speak. He just looked at Emily. His usual bravado softened. The man who'd faced down world leaders, handled crises, and weathered firestorms of controversy stood still. Then, slowly, he stepped down from the podium. Security instinctively moved in, but Trump raised a hand, waving them off. His focus stayed fixed on the young reporter. "I'm truly sorry for your loss," he said, voice low. Emily nodded but didn't speak. The cameras were still rolling, beaming the image live across several networks. Then Trump said something that made producers scramble. He turned to the press pool and said, "Turn the cameras off. Let's give her some dignity." A pause. Some hesitated. But one by one, the networks complied. Live streams were cut. Anchors filled the air with commentary. And inside that now quiet room, something rare happened. A moment of silence for one soldier, one family. Trump reached out, not for a handshake, but simply to place a hand on her shoulder. "You don't need to explain anything," he said. He was a hero. and so are you. 5. The moment that went viral anyway. Though the cameras were off, the story was already spreading. Reporters tweeted out what happened. A photojournalist captured a still image. Emily with her hand over her mouth, Trump standing next to her, expression somber. Within hours, that photo was everywhere. #EmilySantos trended worldwide. The White House released a statement confirming the death of Lance Corporal Miguel Santos and praised his bravery. Trump's former critics, including journalists who had clashed with him, admitted the moment was genuine. "You could feel it," one anchor said on national TV that night. He saw her pain, and for once, everything else melted away. There was no politics in that room, just a young woman mourning her brother. Emily, overwhelmed by the attention, released a statement the next day. "I didn't come to the briefing expecting anything. I was just doing my job. But I think maybe my brother wanted his story heard. And in some strange, beautiful way, it was." 6. America responds, a nation pauses. Veterans across the country posted tributes to Miguel. Military families shared their own stories of loss. Teachers printed Emily's photo and used it in classrooms to talk about courage and compassion. Trump, for his part, called Emily privately. No press, no speech, just a quiet call to say thank you. A few days later, he mentioned the incident at a rally. He didn't talk politics. He simply said, "I met a young reporter this week. Her brother gave his life for this country. I saw her pain. And I want you all to know, heroes don't just wear uniforms. Sometimes they sit in the back of the press room, trying to stay strong." The crowd applauded. Even critics acknowledged that something had shifted. Because in a time when the world often feels divided, one moment of real, unfiltered humanity had managed to unite people, even just for a night. 7. 1. Are you okay? But in the right moment, spoken with sincerity, it became a lifeline. Emily Santos returned home to Ohio a few days later, where the entire town came out to honor her brother. Flags lined the streets. Strangers hugged her in grocery stores. Her newspaper ran a full front-page tribute. She never sought the spotlight, but now that she had it, she used it to raise awareness for military medics and their sacrifices. A foundation was started in Miguel's name, Hands of Honor, to support wounded medics and their families. As for that moment in the press room, it lives on in videos, news articles, and most importantly, in the hearts of millions who saw it unfold. A reporter cried, "President noticed." And for one night, the lead story wasn't about politics, war, or scandal. It was about empathy.